Hey guys, welcome back. I'm Joe Gaither, the host of the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central, and most of you guys know me as talking sports 5 times a week. But I'm not going to be talking any sports today. Today, I'm joined by District 3 City Councilman Karl Wiggins, and he's running for re-election at the end of the month, August 26th, right here in Northport. I'm a Northport resident, and it's a very, very interesting time in the city. So I figured I'd try to get involved and try to get to know the candidates for city council. Carl, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And we can talk sports if you want to.
Well, maybe at the end, maybe at the
Okay.
end, but we try to keep things as separate as we can
Yeah,
here.
understood.
It is football season. It's going to be upon us before we know it. And
Yeah.
sports are a big part of Northport. We will talk about River Run Park and maybe developments going on right there. So absolutely, I'm game
Sure.
for it.
All right. Sounds good.
I'll just open this right up and ask you a little bit about yourself. What's your background in Northport? What's your background in West Alabama? And kind of what do you do outside of city council? So some
Yeah.
highlights. Who is Karl Wiggins outside of just the name on a page?
Right. So I was born here in Tuscaloosa. Most of my family is, or here in this area. Most of my family is kind of from the area. Didn't grow up here though. I grew up in Tallahassee, Alabama, which is a little town between Montgomery and Auburn. Came back here to school, and then got married and moved to Northport in 1999. So I've lived
Hmm.
in Northport for a good long while. Married 27 years now.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I have 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls. They're all burgeoning adults now. They're all in their 20s. I have one still in college, and the rest are all out and making their way into the world. And I work for a company called Fusible. Used to be Randall Riley, used to be Randall Publishing. I've worked there for 25 and a half years. So I'm the vice president of IT there.
Awesome. IT, so you can help me with any problems. I know I've been having
Yes.
some internet problems down in the studio.
Maybe.
Some of our
Yeah.
videos I know are a little blurry, and I'm like, I don't know what to do about that besides getting another hotspot or two.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate your time today, and I appreciate getting into some of these issues that Northport is facing. Just right off the bat, you were telling me about your appointment into the District 3 city seat, city council seat. For those who just see you as I said, a name on a page, what is your background with the city council? What made you want to kind of apply for that city council seat in 2022, 23?
Right. So I had, I kind of followed Northport politics for a while, obviously living here for a long time, wanted to just things that were of a concern because we're in the community and want to see the city do well. When Mayor Herndon resigned, uh, obviously John Hinton became mayor ultimately, and that opened up the District 3 council seat. And I had Christy Bobo reached out to me because we worked together actually at Randall Riley at the time, and we had never met, but
It's a big company.
it is a big company, and we were all remote at that time too, so we'd never actually met each other. But I talked to her on the phone a few times, and she just said, "Hey, I know you live in District 3," and I was like, "How do you know that?" But but she did, and she said, would you be interested in being on the council?" And I was like, I don't know. I think I'm too much of a jerk to to be on the city council. But I said I'm interested in politics. I have a degree in political science, and I follow it. But um, I'll think about it. I'll talk to my wife. I didn't really know what the process was at the time to be on the council. I didn't know if her just asking me was enough, or like what. I didn't have really any idea what that looked like. But we turned out we filled out an application, wrote a cover letter, went through some confirmation that we wanted to, that we did live in the district and all that, and then went through an interview process and didn't hear anything back for a little while. and for whatever reason, the council didn't select somebody. So then it went to Governor Ivey, and had to go through the whole process again. Basically, fill out an application, go through a background check, write a cover letter. Why did I want to do this? Um, and then go to interview with the governor's office on appointments in Montgomery. And then I, got a call that I'd been selected. So a little bit of an odd process to to make it onto the council, and coming in the middle of a term like that is challenging. Um, I feel for Councilman Aiken, because he came in a controversial time in the middle of a term as well, and it's a hard thing to do because there are a lot of things that are already kind of in motion and established. I mean, it'll be the same thing for a new council coming in too. That there are a lot of things in play that they may or may not have a lot of say in, or there's a pretty steep learning curve to
That's
to
so.
getting into the council and understanding how things work and all that. So, um, I had somebody ask me, I think Mayor Hinton was the one that asked me a couple of weeks ago, do you regret joining the council?
Good question.
And I said, no, I don't regret it. I feel like I've done some things that were beneficial to the city. I think that there are, um, I have brought some value. I've brought some knowledge that has helped the city. I think I've, advised on some cybersecurity things. I've contributed, I feel like, in a positive way. I said, now, if you ask me, would I do it all over again? That's a different question. It's knowing what I know now, I'm not sure I would, because it's a hard thing to do. It's very demanding, and it's rough.
Well,
People are rough,
that
and
yes.
that's a challenging part of it. It's, I signed up for it, so I don't blame anybody else but myself. But it's a hard thing in the age of social media to do things that you think move the city forward, without making people angry about it. So I mean, it's a tough thing.
Well, that answer begs the question: why are you running for reelection again? Then you can vote for him on August 26th. City Council is up for vote on August 26th. You're running for reelection in District 3. What's your motivation for running in this next term?
I mean, it's a really good question, and to be honest, I thought a lot about whether or not I wanted to, and I think ultimately there are some things that I feel like are important to get done, and I feel like um, I've seen sort of the way things have worked in the past in Northport, and I don't want to go back to um, some of the activities that have characterized previous councils, and I feel like I um, have a positive impact. I think I feel like I can do good work, but this is not a long term thing for me. I want to do this and contribute, and then move on. I mean, I feel like maybe that's one more term, or maybe I'll be done in August. So that I'm kind of okay with that. I'm not going to be a career politician.
You already have a
I
career.
have a career. I have a job. I have a family. So while this is it, I'm doing what I can to be reelected. I also will be perfectly fine moving on too. So I feel like that, and honestly, I feel like that's how every politician should be. I feel like there's a tendency that politicians, even those who come in with really good intentions and want to make good change and contribute, a lot of times will get caught up in the cycle of raising money and getting reelected, and that being the goal. And I don't think that should be the goal. I think your goal should be to make change and then open it up for somebody else to come in. So I think whatever happens, it'll be positive. I hope it'll be positive.
All right, so you mentioned there are some things that you'd like to get done in the next term. Let's have a two-part question.
Okay.
You came in 23. What are some of the things from 23 to now? You mentioned cybersecurity. You can readdress that if you'd like, or other aspects that you're
Yeah.
proud of. What are some of the things that you think? Oh, these are some of my accomplishments, or some of the things I'm proud of. And then, what are some of the things that you think need to get done in your next term?
Yeah. So, I think the River Run Park project is a massive win for the city of Northport. I think we already have a strong baseball and softball tradition, and a lot of people here in Northport in the past and currently are involved in that. And I think it is a natural area for us to invest in as a community. I think it opens up a lot of opportunities to work with, corporate partners and management partners and retail partners to bring more investment into Northport. Sports tourism is a $1 billion industry, and why not here? Why not
Sure,
bring that opportunity, whether it's hotel rooms or restaurants or people shopping, or, they're going to come here and play tournaments from out of town. They're going to see what this community is like. Maybe they want to come live here, but at the very least, we'll take their money and let them spend it here
of
and
course.
benefit in a way that doesn't raise taxes on the people who live here. So it's a way to bring new revenue into the community. It's a way to increase, visitors. Hopefully, it's a way to make people excited about, the recreational activities that we have in town and the other things that we're going to bring into that park in the future. So and to your second part of that question, I want to see additional development in that area, whether it's, a championship hotel, whether it's the indoor sports facility that we're talking about doing there, whether it's the fishing the tournament fishing kind of area that we're adding to the park. So all of those things that I think are part of the vision, I want to be part of it. So that's one of the reasons that I'm interested in. One of the big things I think that we have accomplished and are getting very close to opening that park. So I'm super excited about it. Um, I think that we've done some things. I mean, I'll just say for myself, when I
Please.
came on to the council, very early in my time, um, we we already were down the road with uh, the bond that the city took out to build the water park and to do River Run Park. And I think the first vote that I had on the council was to approve the bond. So I came into that hot, like, just
Right in the middle.
just right in the middle of it. And and then there was very shortly after that, there was the idea that, and I have heard that this came from Mayor Herndon and Councilwoman Dykes, this idea of selling the community center and the community park for commercial development, which I thought, I mean, that sounds like a good idea. Um, I didn't really fathom how many people cared about that park, and I think pretty early on I was like, this is not good. It's not a good look. And also, like, I tend to be, one of the things I came in to the council when I interviewed initially saying was, we have an office, my company has an office in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Sure.
And so I travel there fairly often. And one of the things that I think Charlotte does really well is they have a lot of parks and green spaces, and they connect different neighborhoods and communities with green spaces. And I'm like, you know, we could do that here. And so there was a part of me that looked at that and was like, yeah, it's a bad look to just say, hey, let's take a park away. Which I understand. I understand why people I don't love the location of it as a park, because to me it's close to the highway, and like there's some other things about it. But
Sure.
like a lot of people, were connected to it um, from a historical standpoint because of what it had been to them in their lives and all that. And I just didn't have that connection to it, so I didn't know it.
Right.
Um, so one of the things that we did when that we got to the end of that process where we were looking at it and really didn't have a proposal on the table to even look at. So we all just kind of looked at it, or at least I did, and said, we're done with this. We don't want to go back and do this again. But also, that building had been neglected. It had not been kept up. The park was kind of looking a little bit run down. And we kind of said, if we're going to keep it and people care this much about it, let's invest some money into um, refurbishing it and Civitan Park and the Hassan Center Park. And so we said, we've got some first funds money, some of that 1 cent sales tax money that
Right.
is designated for recreational use. Let's spend some money and make those things look better. And I think we've done that. I mean, I think we um, efficiently didn't spend a ton of money, but we spent, I think, between all the different facilities, about $500,000 to fix roofs, to paint, to put up new fencing. We got some sponsorship help to build playground equipment in Civitan Park, fix some other things up in the Tiger Field next to Hassan Center. So, I think we learned, or at least I feel like I did learned a bit of a lesson from that. Um, we also did something that no previous council had ever done, which was said these properties, the Civitan Park, the community park, and the Hassan Center, are parks in perpetuity. And that was one of the things that people got mad at us for doing, was saying, "Oh, well, you took away the protected status of those parks to try to sell them." We didn't, because they weren't protected. They there had been sort of a process put in place that said you had to unanimously vote to um, open them up
Sure.
for selling. But that wasn't really a protection as long as the council wanted to do it. So now we put it in place where the only way that those properties can be sold is if the people in Northport vote to sell them. So, and there's reasons not to do that in cases. If you think, well, this area may be a place we need to build something else, or
Eventually.
the road needs to be moved or something like. I mean, like,
Sure.
that's happened before. That Bridge Avenue was in a different location. There was a different bridge over the river. So there's reasons to look at that and say maybe that's not the best idea. But I think ultimately we just said, well, anybody else who comes in here and tries to sell this, it's going to go badly for them. And so maybe we just need to say, hey, we're going to protect these and take it off the table. So, I think those are all things that we did. If I was coming into the council today, having known all of that, I probably would have made some different decisions early on, or challenged that a little more. But I was green coming into it, and not having been on the council before, and everybody else was, more experienced because they had started in 2020 at least.
Right.
Jeff Hogg had been on the council for 4 years prior to that. So it definitely is a challenge coming in as a newbie, and not as a rookie, so to speak, and getting your footing there. And I mean, I feel like I'm there, but like, it takes a while to get to get up to speed and understand how the dynamics work. One of the things that is true on the council is that, to really do anything, you have to have at least two other people going alongside with you. And you can come in with all the ideas in the world, but if you can't convince people to be on your side on them, then they're not going anywhere.
We're hanging out with Karl Wiggins. He's up for re-election on August 26th with the Northport Municipal Elections. You talked about one of your first votes was basically the bond process with University Beach. So let's go jump right into the
Okay.
University Beach stuff. One, what's your perspective on University Beach as a city councilman? Where is the project now? I think because for me, I'm kind of so plugged into just my area of if it's not in my home, I don't
Sure.
really know it. But then you see things online that's yeah this, yeah
Yeah.
that, and I don't really know. I haven't really been able to get a good grasp on where the project is at the moment and where it's really going to be landing.
Yeah.
Because you see, oh, is it a small water park? Is it a community development? Is it just a lake with a bunch of condos around it? Just get started on your thoughts on University Beach and where the project is heading.
Okay. I'm gonna back up a
Please,
little bit and
please.
kind of go. So there were some challenges as far as the things we were able to say about this project and also how to communicate it. Um, and in many ways, it's not our project because there's a private developer involved, and while we have some, um, it's a partnership, and we have some money that is designated toward it. We're not necessarily in the driver's seat for all of it, but I want to talk about kind of how we got
Please.
there and what that project, how it became what it became.
Yeah.
Um, when I came onto the council, obviously, if you go back, um, one of the first things that when I interviewed with the council initially that I talked to them about was I said, in my time in Northport, most of the councils uh, seem to have, gotten elected and then completely swept out every term. And I said, why do you think that is? And the one exception to that from the previous council had been Jeff.
Sure.
And he had run on he had run on the water park
Yeah.
project and had been elected basically in a landslide. He was by a wider margin than anybody else had. And so I think he came in with a feeling like, there was a mandate for him to deliver on the water park project. Um, so I'd asked them about, why do you think Northport is challenging for politicians that way? I mean, if you look across the river at Tuscaloosa,
Yeah, the
I
same
mean,
mayor forever and
yeah,
ever.
same. Walt's been elected 6 times, and the mayor before him, Al DuPont, was elected, at least that many times. I think he was there 30 years. Kip Tyner has been there longer than Walt. So it isn't the same across the river, and I was kind of interested in that.
Sure.
Um, but anyway, so one of the things that happened kind of in that process of figuring out what to do with the water park and build it, I think Jeff had a very um, firm vision of what he wanted the water park to look like. He wanted to have this many slides, and he had lazy river and all this other stuff. And they kind of worked out this is what it's going to cost to build that. And then anybody who lived through 20 to now realizes a lot of things happened during that time. Inflation, construction costs went way up.
Oh yeah.
Big changes in sort of building, and I think as they looked at the project, they said, "We're not sure we have enough money to build it and do what we wanted to do. So what should we do about that?" And the recommendation that I think they had talked to some consultants or whatever. A lot of this happened before I was ever involved in the council, but I think they had talked to people and they said, your best bet is to do a public private partnership, which is a thing that is allowed under the state constitution,
Sure.
and basically don't be in the build it, but don't be in the business of running it.
Sure.
Let somebody else manage the building and running of it. So that was what we were looking at when I came onto the council. The idea was, we're we have this design. We were looking at perhaps buying some additional property on McFarland Boulevard, and maybe putting some additional restaurants or something like that to try to help finance the operation of it. And that was sort of the vision, was maybe we would buy some additional land back behind the 12 acres that was part of it, or maybe working with somebody else to buy some of that land. And so my understanding, because again, this was sort of brought to us as a council by staff as sort of, here are the options we have. So we had some developers come to us and say, hey, we're interested in sort of partnering with you to do something. And in particular, one who said, well, we have this, you have this idea, but we have this idea that's a little bigger, and we want to do some other things. And one of the things they said was, who owns all that property behind what the city bought, which originally was about 12 acres of land? And so they started talking to the family that owned the land. I think it was inherited by a family that, that you had to get a bunch of people involved in agreeing on selling it. But that was their kind of proposal. They went and talked to the family, and they said, we want, they came to us, and again, we had to go in this signing a non-disclosure agreement while they're trying to figure out what their part of what they wanted to do. Now, we were still in parallel working on, we're going to do the small water park and our vision of the project, because for about a year while we were working through, and again, this is about the time that I got on the council that they started looking at it. We did not know whether this was going to go anywhere, right?
Sure.
And if a developer comes to you and says, hey, we have this idea, that kind of thing happens all the time. And sometimes those things come to fruition, and sometimes they don't, because the land deal falls through, or you have a pandemic in the middle of it. I mean, like there was a deal that was pretty close to bringing like a movie theater to Northport, and then the pandemic happened and it fell apart. So that kind of thing happens, and you do have to negotiate in good faith and not tell the whole world what you're doing. As a city, you have to give the people who are looking at buying the land and developing the project some protection to actually do that work. So if you think about a project like Mercedes coming to West Alabama, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, whenever it was, 30, until it got announced, all the negotiations kind of happened behind closed doors, and that's just how that works. So I understand a lot of people don't like that.
Yeah.
And I mean, I get it. It can have the appearance of you trying to hide things, but I think from our standpoint, I wasn't involved in the negotiations with them. We had a legal team and a staff that was doing all that. We just weren't supposed to talk about it. That was basically, we couldn't make announcements about what we were doing or what we were looking at. And to be frank, we didn't have a deal, right? So there was not much to talk about until it looked like it was either going to happen or not.
Sure.
So we went through all of that. They said, well, what we want to do, we want to build the water park, but they were like, we want to use the water park as sort of a lever to do these other things we want to do, which is the lagoon, hotel, convention space, residential stuff, and if you have this lagoon, people will be able to, there'll be some common area where they can come in and enjoy it. They could go to a restaurant, because one of the things that people always talk about with the water park is, what do you do during, all the months of the year that you can't use the water park
Sure,
because
of
it's too
course.
cold or whatever.
It gets pretty cold in January.
Yeah, nobody's going to go swimming in January. So then the question is, how do you make that profitable year round?
Sure.
Well, I don't think from our perspective it was the idea to do the water park wasn't that we were going to make money off of it. It was just that it was going to be a thing for kids and families to enjoy, and a thing to attract people, from the area to Northport. But when they said, "Hey, we're going to have a boardwalk and we're going to have restaurants where you come sit and enjoy the water, and we'll have some, maybe we'll have lights out there and we'll have concerts or whatever, we'll do some other things," and we're like, that all sounds neat, like,
Yeah.
sure. And they worked on their plan and put all that stuff together while we were still working on putting the water park, proper, the smaller part of it, together. And as we got closer to, actually having an agreement, one of the things that we had to, discuss with them was that they were kind of like, well, you took this bond out for $20 million. Just give us that money and we'll use it to build the project. And we're like, no, you can't, you can't do that. This is a bond for public infrastructure. And so we can't just transfer it to you, and we can't use it to build a hotel, or we can't, like, none of those things are possible.
Right.
What we can do, and what the agreement basically says, is the cost that we will pay as a city into this is exactly the same as what we had originally taken out for the water park. It's $20 million.
Sure.
And what we will do is, to build this development, you will have to build sewer system, you'll have to build water system, you'll have to build road infrastructure and storm drainage. All those things are public infrastructure. We will reimburse you for any of that stuff you build.
Yeah.
Up to $25 million, but we will only pay 20.
Okay.
So basically 75 cents on the dollar. We will reimburse you up to 20 million. If you spend 25.1 million, you still only get 20. If you spend 30, you still only get 20. So that's the deal we made. And the deal we made also was that in that district of land that they bought, which is the almost 80 acres totally, because we would give them the land that the city bought.
Yeah.
We would deed it to them, basically. And we had paid, I don't remember the exact number, but I want to say it was about $2.7 million for the land. And then within that district, for up to 30 years, we would share any tax revenue that was generated by the district, whether it was sales tax or, like a hotel tax, occupational, whatever. We would share those 50-50. So the city would get half of it. They would get half of it up to whatever that number is. I want to say it's $61 million. If they hit that number in year 20, then they get no more. If they never hit that number at year 30, they don't get any more either. So the one requirement there is they have to build the park. They have to build the water park part of it, which is the project that the city wanted.
Right.
They have to build the water park, and they have to operate it for that entire time. Because if that water park ever closes, they forfeit their right to get the tax revenue. So that's the deal we basically made with them. They have a lot of economic studies and things that they put together to say, we're going to bring in all this tax revenue to Northport, which I absolutely hope they do. That is one of the reasons that I supported it, because there's a huge potential for them to bring economic benefit, jobs, all kinds of value to West Alabama. Yeah. I mean, one of the things they're planning to do is build convention space up to like 15,000 square feet. We don't have anything like that in the city. And so there are a lot of conferences and conventions and things that will not locate here because we just don't have the space for it.
Sure.
So bringing something like that is a huge economic boom to the community, and that would be nice to have here. It's not the thing we started out to do, but it's an additional value that would be added besides just doing the water park part, which is the only part we're investing in, right?
Sure.
We're investing in the operating cost and building and keeping open the water park. Everything else that they're doing is their project, basically. Now we have to cooperate on it because it is a public-private partnership. But that's how that deal was put together. And so your question, going
You're good.
all the way
You're all
back to
good.
it, all
You're
the way back,
answering it.
yeah, all the way back to the question you asked, which was, why did we vote to suspend the rules?
That's my next.
Okay.
I wanted to re-get to that exactly.
So the way that any vote like that would have worked by design is that you would have a first reading. And I don't know
Yes.
if you ever sit in like on a council meeting, but basically they'll say, here's a proposal. We're going to have a first reading tonight. Does somebody want to offer it for a first reading? Somebody will go, yes. And then you have another meeting in 2 weeks to have the second reading and the public hearing.
Right.
The reason that the developer had made an agreement with the Shirley family to buy the property for University Beach, and it was contingent on us voting to suspend the rules and do the second vote that night. And the reason was because if they felt like if they had another 2 weeks to wait to hear about it, that the deal would fall apart. And so their agreement to buy the land was contingent on us having the up or down vote immediately, because they would be out of the deal if we voted no.
Okay, right there. If you had voted no, and you're saying, oh, they're worried that the deal had fallen apart, might have fallen apart. Why would that be a worry if this is such a? I mean, because what you're saying sounds great. Why would that be a worry? Because I'm not a businessman.
Why would it be a worry for the council or for them?
For them. But why would they be worried that the deal would have fallen apart? And maybe that's details we don't know. But
I think
I'm not really a businessman, so that doesn't make sense to me.
I think the concern, if you are, and I'm not a developer either, sure. So, but I think the concern is once the information about a deal you're trying to put together gets out into the public and you don't have a signed agreement for the land.
Oh, they might have sold it to someone else.
Yes, that somebody else would have come in and said, oh, I want to buy it. And I think they were just trying to make the purchase deal for the land at the price they had negotiated.
Okay. All right.
So the idea was it would have been put together at the time that the vote went through.
That clicks.
And so they were set to close the next day, but it was contingent on us having the vote that night. And so basically our attorney said, you can vote any way you want to as far as whether or not you approve the development agreement. Because that's our right. But they, basically they said, it is our recommendation. I want to make sure I'm not a lawyer. Sure. I'm not going to tell you exactly what, I don't remember exactly what they said, but basically it's our recommendation that you need to at least vote unanimously to bypass the first vote and just have the second one, which is by law you can do that. Right. As long as you have 5 votes that say we're going to skip the first reading, you can do that. That's how it works. So, I think everybody went into that meeting understanding that was, if you voted no on the 5 vote deal, you basically were voting no on the project.
And the city was pretty much already with the $20 million bond.
Well, we had the bond was already done. So
right.
We were going to do that anyway. Then we would have been back to the drawing board on how are we going to use this $20 million to build the water park and operate it. I think the expectation at that time was that the water park was going to cost more than $20 million. It probably would have been like 23 to 25.
Sure.
And that there was an estimate that it would take $3 to $5 million a year to operate it. So, you can go back and ask, should we have done that to begin with? That's a fair question. I wasn't on the I wasn't on the council then, so I mean, I think it's a fair question to ask. But for me, I came in when we were already on the hook for the $20 million. Now, if you want to look at the bond payment, like a lot of people go, well, this is gonna break Northport. We're concerned about how we're gonna pay for that. The bond payment on the total amount that we took out on the bond was $47 million. It was $20 million for the water park, 27 for the sports complex.
Yeah.
And the bond payment on that is about $3.5 million. Don't quote me on that, but it's about $3.5 million a year. The revenue from the Northport First funds, the 1 cent sales tax, right now is about $7.8 million a year. So it started around 5 when they first put it in place in 2019, and has grown as the city has progressed and grown. And we're able to use that money to do other things, which is great. We've given a lot of money to the school system. We're not obligated to, but we've given a lot of money to the school system over the years. We've given a lot of money to different projects. We've done some, facade development type stuff. We've put money into a lot of infrastructure projects because, to be honest, there was a lot of backlog of infrastructure problems that had not been addressed for decades in some cases. So we're not in a bad financial position from the bond itself.
Sure.
And the bond was taken out to do these big projects. And so, while you may have you may have asked another question about it being controversial. We can come back to that if you did.
Feel free to just roll right into it.
But I feel like from my perspective, what we have done is tried to make good use of the funds that we had available to us to bring projects in that I think will enhance the city and bring jobs and bring revenue. And I understand, not everybody likes it. And, from my perspective, I've told people this pretty readily. I feel like if I lose this election, it will be because of University Beach. And I'm okay with that. And the reason I'm okay with it is because I feel like it's a big swing that we made on the future of Northport. And, I recognize that people can have differing opinions about that. One of the examples I've brought up to people is back in the mid 80s, my grandparents built a house in Vance on property that my family has owned for a long time. They were trying to move closer to my great grandmother. And so they built a new house out there in the mid 80s and moved into it. And not too long after that, I want to say it was 93, they announced this big Mercedes development, and it's pretty close. It's within a mile of their property. And they had a lot of concerns about that Mercedes plant coming in, about pollution, about runoff, about what it was going to do to their property, about noise, all the things that you would expect when you have a big auto manufacturing plant come in. I would argue that it may not have been great for them, but you can't argue with the fact that the Mercedes plant has been a huge boon to this state and to West Alabama and to Tuscaloosa and Northport generally. We have a lot of people who live in our communities who work there.
Yeah.
So I understand both sides of why people would say this is bad for me personally.
Sure.
But also feel like it's a good thing for the city as a whole. And I mean, I understand why people don't want it or that people don't like it. And I feel like you know, the position we're in on the council is one where you have to make hard decisions for what you think is best for your community. And to be honest, if you look at the revenue that the city has, there are a lot of things that people, when I was first looking at this um, uh, political scene in Northport, my kids grew up in they were homeschooled up to a certain point, and then all of my kids ended up going to county schools. So all my kids graduated from county high.
Go Wildcats.
Go Wildcats. My wife also graduated from county high, and I understand, especially given that we went through a pretty hard time in the county school system with COVID. My son Noah graduated in basically his last 2-3 months of his senior year. They didn't go to school. It just kind of fell apart, right? And so I understand with kids growing up in this community that there was a lot of concern about the county school system, about funding, the fact that Northport pays a higher property tax than the rest of the county, but feels like it doesn't get its fair share out of the county school system. We've got 2 schools in Northport that are more than 70 years old, that are not in perfect condition, and I think everybody understands that is a challenge. At the same time, we had a study that happened in Northport right before I joined the council. It actually was released. It was held and released after I joined the council, that basically said we would have to increase our property tax 3 to 5 times to operate our own school system in the city.
Yeah.
At the same level of funding, not to make it any better, but just to take it over, because we would have to take on all the debt and the ownership of all the buildings in the city limits. And nobody wants to raise property taxes. I mean, we've had plenty of votes that have shown that nobody wants to do that. And so, if you're looking ahead and saying, what can we do to help our schools in Northport? The only way to address something like that is to bring in more revenue in some other way. And if you look at where our revenue comes from in Northport, it comes from sales tax. The majority of it comes from sales tax. And our biggest providers of sales tax are like grocery stores. Now, at the same time that I was, moving into the council, the state legislature looked at eliminating all sales tax on groceries, I should say. Which I understand the argument for that. My parents lived in a state for a little while that did not have sales tax on groceries, because sales tax on groceries is regressive and it affects poor people more in a higher percentage of their income than
disproportionate.
Yes, it's a disproportionate tax. So I understand the argument, and yet at the same time, it would cripple most of the municipalities in the state. And Northport in particular, because we are a bedroom community basically for Tuscaloosa, we don't have a lot of industry or commercial enterprises in Northport to make up the difference, if that was ever to happen. Now, I think our legislative delegation did a good job in making sure that didn't happen for us, although the state, relinquished, kind of its proportion of that, or at least talked about it. But looking ahead, if we're trying to think, how do we diversify our tax base without raising taxes on residents? One of the only other way to do that is to expand the tax base, or to bring visitors in to spend tax money. So you can grow the community larger, you can bring more business in, or you can bring other people's tax money into town. Those are your options. So, I mean, I feel like those are the things that we've tried to work on. And I understand, that they can be controversial. I don't think, I mean, we've been accused of a lot of things that are not true. But if you just oppose it because you don't want to see it here, I get it. I mean, but I think you're wrong. And that's my position on it. And, if I lose an election because of it, then I'm okay with that, because I feel like I did what I thought was best for the community.
Well, I think that was an extensive answer, and I feel
It was
very.
extensive.
That's
I
okay, but I
apologize.
mean, coming from someone who's just heard so much different
Yeah.
things, I needed an extensive answer. We'll keep rolling. We're here with Karl Wiggins, and he is running for re-election, District 3 for City Council. You guys can vote August 26th. And I want to keep it on the economics, where I hear from small business owners, oh, we need to make it easier to come to Northport as small businesses. So it's a couple part question just on economics, on what can we do as a city to attract more small businesses? What kinds of businesses or industries would you like to see move into Northport?
Mhm.
Do you have anything? Oh, I can stroke the pen and bring this business or this industry to town. What do you think Northport needs to maybe go along with the University Beach project?
Yeah. Um, that's a good multi-part question.
I like
So
listening.
yeah.
I
So
do. I'm
so
sorry.
I think that, you know, what we can do is, and what we've tried to do, I think, with certain developments, if somebody says, "Hey, I want to bring a restaurant, or I want to bring a business that we feel like is something that is uh, new to market," like, one of the things you see a lot on Facebook, and I mean, I talk a lot about social media and Facebook. I've had to step away from it to a certain extent, because I would just get so stressed and
Put the phone down.
angry about it. Yeah, that I really stepped way back from it. But one of the things you see a lot is people, joking about, we have too many car washes and chicken finger places and all that stuff. And I'm like, I feel that. I understand that. And if somebody said, "Hey, we've got a new chicken finger place we're going to bring in town." I mean, great. If you've got an idea and you want to sell it, the marketplace of restaurants is wide open for you to come in. But it's a hard deal. And the reason chicken finger places do well is people like chicken fingers.
I do.
But that, if somebody said, "I'm going to bring in another chicken finger place," we probably wouldn't give them any economic incentives. But one of the things the city can do is say, if you're bringing something that is new to market, if you were going to bring in, say, like the Diamond Gems steakhouse thing, which we're like, hey, a sit down family steakhouse restaurant is great, and I think a lot of people who have been to that establishment really like it. We said, hey, if you'll come in, we'll kind of do the same thing that we talked about with University Beach. We'll split the sales tax revenue over a certain period of time. It's the same deal that basically brought Walmart and Lowe's to Northport, was to say, over some period of time, which is different depending on what your economic impact would be,
Sure.
but over some period of time, we will split the taxes with you to give you an incentive to build here and
Right.
come here. And I know there are a lot of people who would say, "Oh, we'd like to see a Target, or we'd like to see a Costco, or we'd like to see a Trader Joe's. We like all of those things." All of those companies have um, business requirements that they look at to say, when does it make sense for us to locate in an area? Some of those are based on population size. Some of those are based on um, average income for a household. Even things like, how many households do you have in housing prices and all that stuff. I mean, like, there's a lot of things that we have no control over. But what we do have control over is to say, hey, we will share the benefit of you coming here, because we think it provides value to the community. So that's one thing we can do. Another thing we're looking at is working with the city of Tuscaloosa, working with Tuscaloosa County and the Economic Development Authority, and trying to put together this transportation hub project, which would expand the airport, lengthen the runway there, um, it would move the Parker towing down the river a little bit and bring the railroad out to the river. So basically create a place for us to provide a better flow of goods into the city. I know Walt has a lot of long-term plans for what he wants to do with the airport that we've taken a look at. So I think there are things like that we can do as a government. I mean, obviously, we want to encourage businesses to come here, and yet we can't just give them money. They have to want to come here, and we can do things to try to attract them. I think for your question about small business too, if you think about what can we do to make it easier for them to come here, we have in the last year and a half have put together new zoning ordinances. We put together a comprehensive plan in the city, and I think we've tried to make it easier and more streamlined to come to Northport. We're not perfect, and I think there's still adjustments that we can make to make it easier for people to locate here. But we have heard that in the past that Northport may not be the easiest place to work with to come in for a developer or a new business. And I think my goal is to try to make that as smooth as possible, while also being responsible, with the community that we bring things in a way that has some thought. Which I think the comprehensive plan is really designed to say, what types of development do we want to see in different places?
Right.
And I'm the council's representative to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and it's something we look at whenever somebody wants to do a new development or build a new neighborhood or annex in the city. They say, okay, well, based on our comprehensive plan, this is what this zoning is supposed to look like, and this property either complies or doesn't.
Right.
And so that's one of the things we've tried to do to make it easier.
We've had a great conversation today, and I just have maybe one or two more, and so we'll just go right to your campaign. A lot of people want to know, oh, who's behind Karl Wiggins? Who's behind Canada X, Y, Z? I don't care about Jimmy Smith's $5 into your kitty, but like, who are some of your major campaign donors?
Well, so I have had a couple of different developers donate money. I just sent an email to a few people that I knew, have worked with the city, and just said, hey, these are the things I'm running on. These are the things I'm trying to do. And I mean, all this information's publicly available. So, but I just said, hey, these are the things I've done. These are the things I've tried to do as a city council member and a member of planning and zoning. And I think that certain people who support the other team that wants to come in and replace all of us don't like those things that I've supported, the projects that I've talked to you about, like the sports complex and University Beach. And I said, if you are interested in continuing that, I'd welcome a donation. I haven't beat the bushes to find people. I had a few people who reached out to me and said, hey, we want to contribute. And I had some that didn't, and I'm fine. I'm fine with that. There's a part of that is, it's a shame that raising money has to be so much a part of the political process, because it does take the focus away from the voters. And I mean, it's worse the bigger you get. If you're in a small city or small community, it's not as much so. But I mean, if you're getting into a state or a national campaign, it costs millions and millions of dollars to run a campaign. And some of that is, just by design, you're going to have to get your name out there and all that stuff. But um, it's a part of the process that I don't, we talked earlier about, you not being a good salesman. I don't like being a fundraiser. It's not fun. It's not my wheelhouse. And so I haven't done a lot of like beating the bushes to find money, but the most of the people who have contributed are either engineering or developer type people who want to see additional things come to Northport and don't. You know, I'll give you an example of why a developer might care about that, which I think is
Please.
valuable to
Yeah,
understand.
please.
So a lot of the opposition now, I mean, you can argue all you want to about whether or not it was a good idea to sign the development agreement with the people who are doing the University Beach project. But once that agreement got signed, and it got voted on, the impact to the city of not holding up its side of the deal would be huge. And what I mean is the developer has spent millions of dollars buying land and doing all of the engineering work and all the pieces that would go into that. And if they felt like we had breached our side of the deal, then my understanding is that they can sue us for 2.5 times what they spent on it, and they would be at least fairly likely to get that. That's what I've been told. I'm, again, not a lawyer, but every time that we've had a vote on some other piece of this, whether it was the zoning or the plan to the special district plan to get all of that together, or something as mundane as like setting up their board that can do their tax assessments within, or their HOA assessments within the property. Any falling down on any one of those requirements are things that we agreed that we would do within the development agreement. So if we voted no on that, the impact immediately would be that we would get sued for basically millions of dollars and still be on the hook for the bond. I mean, like, the bond doesn't go away, so we still owe that money too. And we wouldn't get the water park, and we would just have poured money down a hole for no reason. So that's a terrible decision. It could be done, but it would be the other impact to that is that if you're a developer who wants to come to Northport and build a project, whether it's a hotel, a restaurant, a gas station, um, grocery store, whatever business or operation you want to build here, a neighborhood, and you see that Northport doesn't uphold its obligations, why would you want to come here? And I think that, if you are a developer, you're looking at that and saying, I trust that this candidate is going to uphold what they said they were going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not impugning anybody else, but I think if somebody is telling you as a candidate that they don't support it, well, I mean, they may not like it, but that's not the same as saying that it's a good idea for us to kill it now, because that's a bad decision for everybody. I mean, I've had people who said, "Hey, I don't want to see this. I don't want it to be built here." Yeah. I mean, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but that's, you know, my goal is to see it get built and be successful. And there's no guarantees. We could have another pandemic. We could have a war. We could have an economic collapse. All of those things can happen. They're all risks. I don't think any of those things are going to happen, but who knows? But I do feel like we have made a bet on the future of Northport, and I want to see that be successful.
Well, Carl, we've talked about a lot of things and you've really been enlightening today. I want to open the door for you to really address anything that maybe, oh, I wish you would have asked me about this
Yeah.
topic, or I wish we should have talked about that. What's some things that I've left off the table?
Well, I think there are a couple of things that I would like to see happen. We talked about um, development. I think one of the challenges that we're seeing really across the country is that housing prices have risen to such a level that they can be unaffordable for new families. And I mean, I told you earlier, I have 4 kids in their 20s, and they're all, when I was my kids' age, I bought a house. I mean, I didn't pay cash for it. I had a mortgage
Getting a
payment.
mortgage,
Yeah,
right?
but I was in a better position 30 years ago than my kids are in, and that is a thing that's happening across the country. Salaries haven't kept up with housing prices. And one of the reasons for that is that after the housing crisis of 2008, we just haven't built enough houses in the country. And Northport, fortunately for us as a city, has grown pretty exponentially over the last 15 years. And we need to build more rooftops in Northport. Um, And part of the limitation for doing that in District 3 is that we don't have enough sewer capacity to build new houses. So that is, it's been a focus since I got into office. Any government project infrastructure wise takes a long time to do and a long time to accomplish. We have some of the funding in place to start doing that and have already started the work, but it's a multi-year effort. And that's one of the reasons that I'm running is to try to continue to focus on getting the sewer system expanded in District 3. That's an important thing to me. The other thing that I think we've done a really good job of is made Northport a place that people want to work as a staff. Um, I've gone the last couple of years to the Alabama League of Municipalities conference, which is basically mayors and council members from all over the state. And one of the challenges that many cities across the country and the state have is that they cannot get enough police officers.
Hmm.
They can't. It's challenging to get people to want to be police because policing is a hard job, and um, and when you get them, you're competing against all the other cities in the area to uh, to retain them. And so one of the things, if you talk to I'm sure Walt Maddox would say this too, like Tuscaloosa and the university and the sheriff's department and the city of Northport are all competing for officers and people to work for us. But one of the things we've been able to do, because we within the city of Northport have provided good economic incentives to the employees, whether they are firefighters or clerks or engineering or planning people or public works, is that we've been able to give them cost of living raises, step raises. We've tried to keep up with and ahead of inflation, and we have fully staffed our police department and fire department and do not have any open positions, which is amazing. And we have become a city where people want to go and stay over the last few years. And that is credit to not, I mean, I'm not taking all the credit for that. That's credit to the council members who were here before me, but and the staff that was here before. But I think we've achieved that for the first time in at least 2 decades that we've had fully staffed police and fire departments. And I think, again, something that I'm incredibly proud of as a member of the council, because 20 years ago, Northport was in a bad financial position as a city, and through the action of previous councils, through growth, even through Walt's SSUT acts that he likes to grind on that. Even through that, the state collecting sales tax on internet sales, those have all benefited Northport tremendously, and we are in a very solid financial position. Since 2020, Northport's revenues have increased by 45%, which is amazing. And we've been very conservative, I think, with how we spend the money. We're in the time that I've been on the council, we've consistently projected revenue growth smaller than it's actually been, so that when we budget, we still have money in reserve. We also have the state requires us to keep a 10% reserve of funds in case of emergencies, financial crisis, and we have 15% because we've just said we're gonna keep more money set aside than the state requires, and we've been able to do that as our budget and revenues have grown. So I feel like we've done a good job in office in the time that I've been there, and that's why I want to continue and move forward with the next council. And yeah, I think that's the stuff that I would like to share with people, because I think there's a lot of negative press out there on us, and I think we've done a good job.
Well, Karl, it's been a great conversation. I'll leave you really the last word. You kind of just address a few things, but please remember that the election is August 26th. Karl is running for re-election for District 3, the Northport City Council. We had horrible voter turnout in the last election. I'm hoping for a lot more people to show out and to make their voices heard. I'll leave you the last word to address everybody who's going to be voting on August 26th.
Yeah, so the polling place for District 3 is Daystar Family Church, which is where it's been for the last few elections. And I would just invite everybody who is listening to this to go out and vote. Vote for your candidate of choice. Even if you don't vote for me, I'd like to see a higher turnout, because I think that's important to our republic. I think it's important that everybody votes. I'd love to see every single person who can show up to vote. And yeah, that's my plea to you, is whoever you vote for, show up to vote.
Karl, thanks so much for your time. I really
Thank you, Joe.
I thought it was a great conversation, and we're looking forward to seeing how the next couple of weeks go.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. We'll keep going as we're getting to know the candidates for Northport City Council right here as the election's coming up on August 26th.